Hello everyone, welcome back to another video and welcome to Cyno's debut, where I will be taking a look at Cyno's kit and how good he is. Cyno is a hyper carry electro damage dealer that specializes in dealing consistent electro damage from his normal attacks from his burst and AoE electro damage from his elemental skill. First, let's jump right into the talents. His first talent is the generic normal attack, charge attack, and plunge attack, etc. Nothing special here. Moving on to his elemental skill. His elemental skill makes him does a forward dash that deals electro damage to anyone in its path. But looking more into it, whenever you proc his skill when using his elemental burst, it will extend the duration of the burst. And now when moving on to the burst called Sacred Rite Wolf Swiftness, it makes him go into a stance change where he uses these electro claws that deals normal attack electro damage. When using his burst, his elemental mastery and resistance to interruption will be increased and it gains immunity to electric charge damage. Now the thing to know here is that his burst can last up to 18 seconds, even though in the skill's attributes it says it lasts up to 20 seconds. The reason it says 18 seconds when going back to the elemental skill, since this elemental skill basically increases the duration of his burst, the max it can go up to is a maximum of 18 seconds than the 10 seconds that it has here. He gains 100 elemental mastery bonus from using his burst. It has a cooldown on 20 seconds and an energy cost of 80, which is very high. And when going back to his elemental skill, his burst does change how his skill functions. The difference from his skill from normal to burst form is that whenever you're in his burst, it makes his E deal AoE electro damage instead of just doing singular target electro damage. In normal form, it has a cooldown of 7.5 seconds, but when using the burst, this skill cooldown decreases to 3 seconds. This passive basically makes him enter a stance whenever using his elemental burst. A giant eye-shaped aura will be on your screen, and whenever that pops up, whenever you use his elemental skill, it does even more damage and fires off 3 Dust Stalker bolts that deal 100% of Cyno's attack as electro damage, which means more AoE electro damage. His second passive basically makes it to where whenever Cyno is in his elemental burst stance, he increases his normal attack damage by 150% of his elemental mastery and Dust Stalker bolt damage from his passive by 250% of his elemental mastery as well. So overall, elemental mastery is the way to go. And his third passive basically makes it to where he gains 25% more rewards from the Summer Expedition. The talent priority you definitely want to do is definitely leveling up your burst and your elemental skill and just ignoring his auto attack. He is a polearm user, so I have him on his signature weapon called Staff of the Scarlet Sands, but when discussing other weapons to use on him, his signature is going to be the ideal for 5 stars, but there are other options as well. This is a good weapon overall because it increases his attack based on his elemental mastery, and considering you do want to build elemental mastery on your Cyno, it does give him more damage overall, and considering that this weapon does have a low base attack, building attack on him will be less viable than going for elemental mastery, and it has the highest value of crit rate at 44.1%. Other 5-star weapons that you can look into is the Jane Wing Spear because it gives crit rate, but since this weapon has a higher base attack, it does increase the value of running attack sands on him and more overall attack from his passive. Another weapon to look into is the Staff of Home, just mainly because of the crit damage, not really more of the passive, just an extra option if you want to run a 5-star on him. When looking into the 4 stars, only a few come to mind. First one being Deathmatch, mainly because of the crit rate and slightly from the passive, it does increase your attack, but considering you're going to mainly focus on elemental mastery, is just a slight booster in a way, but mainly just for the crit rate because you do want to crit on your aggravate procs. The second weapon is going to be the Katane Spear, which is the Inazuma craftable weapon, mainly for the elemental mastery and also the energy buff that it does have from its passive, considering you do want a lot of energy, so that is a good option to go for as well, especially for free to play. But the one main weapon that is really good for free to play is none other than the White Tassel. The White Tassel mainly being because it is a crit rate substat weapon and it has a passive where it increases your normal attack damage by 48%, which is a high value. The total amount of crit rate you can get from this polearm is a total of 23, which is good, but the only thing that makes this weapon kinda hard for free to play is that the fact that this 3-star weapon is not a gacha weapon, it is an exploration weapon. It can only be found in leeway chest. So if you still have some leeway chests, especially in the chasm, because chasm does count as leeway chests, then I definitely recommend putting White Tassel on your Cyno over the Katane Cross Spear. But it honestly depends on how your build looks. If you need more elemental mastery and some energy on the side, then going for Katane is not a bad option. Moving on to artifacts. There's definitely some 4-piece sets you could run on him. The one main set being that you definitely want to run on your Cyno is Thunder Fury. The one thing is that the 2-piece does increase his electro damage by 50%, and the 4-piece increases damage on his electro reactions, 40% on all other electro reactions, and 20% from aggravate. And whenever you hit an enemy affected by one of these electro related reactions, it decreases his elemental skill cooldown by 1 second every 0.8 seconds, which allows you to proc more elemental skills in his burst form. This is really good because a large portion of his damage does come from his elemental skill whenever he is in his elemental burst form. So running this set is going to be the most ideal, but it's only good if you could run an optimal team comp around him that can allow him to proc this 4-piece set. But if you're not looking into running Thunder Fury on him, the other sets that can be ideal, one being the Gladiator's Finale, which he does scale up from the 2-piece attack, and from the 4-piece, since he is a polearm user, it increases his normal attack damage by 35%, which is a high value. The second set you could possibly run on him is Thunder Suitor, mainly because of more electro damage, even though it might be hard in certain team comps to make this set ideal, considering that electro has to be applied to them at all times. But considering that he does do fast normal attacks that deal electro damage, you can consistently proc this set, which does make this set good on him. And the last set to run on Cyno is definitely the Gilded Dream set, mainly because it increases your elemental mastery from the 2-piece effect, and from the 4-piece it increases either your attack percentage or your elemental mastery, which he does scale up both, but mainly elemental mastery. The one thing I don't like about this set, and that I definitely recommend other sets, where if you have 2 of the same element, it increases your attack, or if you're running other elements that is not the same as the equipping character, it increases their elemental mastery. Since most of the time you're definitely going to run a secondary electro unit with Cyno, considering that he does have a high energy cost, you definitely want to run it with a secondary electro unit to battery him. So ideally the most you're going to get from this set is 2 stacks of attack and 2 stacks of elemental mastery, which is a total of 100 elemental mastery and 28 attack. But overall, this is a pretty good set to run on him if you have good pieces. But I strongly recommend running the one set that has the best substats on them. If you have more good substats on Gladiator, run Gladiator. If you have more good substats on Thunder Fury, then run Thunder Fury. If you have good substats on Gilded, then run Gilded. Whichever set you have the best substats on. But for me, I am running Thunder Fury because it is his ideal set. These are my artifacts. And the main reason I'm running an attack sense is because since I already get a lot of elemental mastery just from my substats alone, it allows me to substitute in an attack sense over an elemental mastery sense, even though elemental mastery is better. But considering that elemental mastery is the one substat that is so hard to farm as a main stat of an artifact, it's generally gonna be more better to try to get elemental mastery from your substats than trying to get it as a main stat. But in the end, since this is artifacts and the RNG is not really that great, just go with what you have. Ideally, when looking into this goblet, you definitely want to use electro damage goblet, considering that he does deal a lot of electro damage from his elemental burst and from his skill. And when regarding the circlet, whichever substats that you have, whichever stats that you need, definitely choose either crit rate or crit damage. I don't recommend elemental mastery, even though it can be ideal, just generally because it's harder and it could make balancing your build a lot more harder as well. So that is the build I will be running on Cyno for this debut video. I have him at Z0, but if you do consider pulling constellations, then the only stopping point for you to consider is at C2, because at C2 it increases his electro damage bonus by 50%. With the first one, increases his normal attack speed by 20%. So that is my build on Cyno and guide on how to build him properly. Next, I will show gameplay of me testing him and seeing how good he is as an electro unit.
Propagate! Spring forth! To action! Judgment is upon us. You stand condemned! Guilty! Our penance is due! Crumble! This is order! Scatter! Germinate! Eyes on me! Surrender. Your sins weigh upon your soul. You stand condemned. Guilty. Your penance is due. Terminate! Judgment is upon you. You stand condemned. Your penance is due. Guilty. Crumble. This is order. Scatter. Eyes on me. Nowhere to run. Your sins weigh upon your soul. Your penance is due. You stand condemned. Guilty. You stand condemned. This is order. Eyes on me. Terminate. Surrender. Through me, justice is served. Your penance is due. You stand condemned. Guilty. You stand condemned. Your penance is due. Solidify. Propagate. To ashes. Judgment is upon you. You stand condemned. Guilty.
Alright, that is my testing of Cyno. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Now for my overall opinion on Cyno. Honestly, I think he is a pretty good electro unit overall. The only thing is that when comparing him to other electro units, he doesn't seem that much better, even though he is a good electro user in utilizing electro related reactions like aggravate, electro charge, etc. He's definitely a good solid damage dealer, but considering that his damage isn't all that surprising, he's definitely not a must pull, but definitely a good pull overall. I think the only gripe I have about him is his energy regeneration. Considering that his burst does cost at an 80 energy cost, it does make it hard to consistently proc his burst off cooldown if you're not running a battery as like a secondary electro unit or someone on Favonius. And considering that you're gonna be focusing on damage related stats on your substats from your artifacts like elemental mastery, crit stats, attack percentage, etc., there's a chance you may not have enough energy recharge to continuously proc his burst off cooldown. That's really my biggest gripe about him, is his energy regeneration. My second gripe about Cyno, it has to do with his passive, because whenever you're in his elemental burst, this passive will proc an eye aura on your screen, and sometimes, this is me personally, I feel like in certain situations where like you're fighting against big enemies or like a lot of like reactions or like things are happening on screen, it can sometimes be hard to see the aura on your screen for you to know to proc his elemental skill. And not only that, considering that this doesn't tell us like the exact seconds that this will proc, it makes it slightly even harder or confusing to know when to proc his elemental skill, considering that since Thunder Fury allows him to proc his skill early, there's a good chance that you may proc his skill way too early to not proc it again when this passive is up. So that is something that you just have to get used to when playing Cyno with this passive. When regarding team comps, generally you do want a Dendro unit, mainly being Dendro Traveler, because he or she is a better Dendro applicator in terms of aggravate comps. Depending on your Cyno's energy recharge, you either want to run him with a secondary electro unit or someone using Favonius. And depending on what kind of team comps that you're wanting to run with him, either Hyper Bloom, Electro Charge, or just Aggravate, generally Aggravate is going to be the strongest comp. So in that regard, generally the team comp is going to be either 2 Electro units, one being Cyno, third being Dendro Traveler, and the fourth one being whichever one you want. It could be a Hydro unit if you want to do Hyper Bloom, or it can be Zhongli if you want to run a shield. without having to worry about dodging or getting stunned by enemy attacks. And that is my Cyno debut video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think of Cyno. Do you think he's a good unit? Do you think he's a bad unit? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like, subscribe for more content and debut videos in the future. Check me out on Twitch, the link will be in the description below. That's it for today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.